Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How are you doing today on this Tuesday?
Happy to be here. Lots of news in the NFL.
Yeah, we got the free agency. It's not officially open, but people are making trades. Tampering period's open. So a lot of people making trades, a lot of signings happening, a lot of re-signings. There's a lot going on. We're going to break down a lot of it today. Let's start. I want to jump right into the show. So let's jump into our first topic. So Mac Jones, the former 15th overall pick in the 2021 draft by the New England Patriots, has been traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars for a 2024 sixth-round pick. Mac Jones finishes 3 seasons with the Patriots with an 18-24 record, and now will back up the first overall pick in that 2021 draft, Trevor Lawrence. I want to know, are you surprised the Patriots traded Mac Jones? And also, are you surprised they only got a 6th-round pick from a former 15th overall pick in Mac Jones?
I guess I'm a little surprised. I wasn't overly surprised, let's say. I mean, he played very poorly, and this past year, he played for 11 games. He had a little over 2,000 yards passing, 10 TDs, 12 interceptions. Made some horrible mistakes, cost him a couple of games there, more than one. He's going back to Jacksonville, where he's from. He grew up in Jacksonville. Maybe that will help him a little bit. I don't know. He was told he was going to be drafted right after the combine, so he knew it was coming, and I think that it may have a lot to do with the players losing confidence in him, and a number of the players not being very positive about him, and actually being upset that he showed up to Gerard Mayo's acceptance speech, in Patriots gear. He'd been working out there at the stadium, and I don't know. I just think it's he soured the culture maybe a little bit in New England with the way he complained openly to the coaches in front of the fans. I think that really soured the Patriots on him, and I think that the fact that he went for a 6th-round pick might surprise me a little bit. Maybe he could have been a 5th. Maybe even a 4th, I don't know. But I don't think he's going to get much playing time in Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence there. But if Trevor Lawrence gets hurt, maybe he gets in a game or two. We'll see.
6 is a little bit shocking, but I guess when you talk about the production from this season, not so much. He did not play well by any account. Like I said previously, indefensible. You can't argue that. Oh yeah, but early in the season you could, because he was playing fine, and then once the major fracture in between Belichick and Mac Jones happened, and then at the very end of the season, he didn't even get told he was the 3rd quarterback until a little bit right before the Jets game. So that relationship was gone. He was probably going to be off of the Patriots. There was some hope, new regime, new chances, but generally how this works, if you didn't draft the quarterback, you're probably going to get off him. So we've seen that a couple of times, and once the coach goes, then it's up to the quarterback to get released or traded or whatever the case may be. We just saw it with Russell Wilson, and we see it consistently as several teams go throughout their new quarterbacks and or new coaches, except this time it was both the coach and the quarterback who got either fired or traded away. What I am surprised about is the fact that he went to the Jaguars. Jaguars already had a quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. So the fact that he's getting sent over there, it could be that the Doug Peterson outcoached Belichick in his Super Bowl, and he also won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles after Carson Wentz got hurt. It was pretty impressive. So maybe after a year or two, Mac could somehow get another job somewhere at a bad team. Maybe the Titans get off of Will Levis eventually and say, let's go with Mac Jones. But yeah, I would say the placement is a little bit, interesting to say the least. On the side of the Patriots, they're doing some very, very good things so far this offseason. Let's take a look at some of their moves so far. So we've talked several times on the show, what do the Patriots need? And we've talked about wide receiver, better offensive line. But during this offseason, I guarantee you Kendrick Bourne would have been gone. A lot of pieces that if Belichick was still in place there would be gone. And so I said these are some of the Patriots' needs, and they've hit on basically every single one of the key moves that I thought the Patriots definitely needed to do. The other two are just going to happen maybe. They have the 3rd overall pick. I do not see them trying to trade that 3rd overall pick to another team because they still need a quarterback. They signed Jacoby Brissett to a 1-year, $8 million deal. That is more so just veteran mentorship. That's why Brian Hoyer got picked up by the Patriots when Mac Jones was a rookie. So, also as a sophomore, I'm pretty sure. But that he's not going to be the starting quarterback. Bailey Zappi, he's going to be gone. I had a serious problem with Bailey Zappi liking the Instagram post or the tweet of Mac Jones getting traded and also him going on an Instagram Live and basically saying, yo, let's run this back. He's probably going to be gone. And I don't know why he's making fun of Mac because he got released before week 1 happened and no team wanted him when he was available, so the Patriots re-signed him to a practice squad. But I digress. So the only 2 that are a work in progress or may happen is sign or trade for a difference maker or wide receiver. That's something that the Patriots have needed for a long time. D-Hop was out there, OBJ was out there. They haven't yet done it. And then draft a quarterback. The draft's in April. They're probably going to draft a quarterback. The question is, what quarterback? I prefer Jaden Daniels, but I also heard somewhere that they're looking at the Commanders now really like Jaden Daniels, so the Patriots might end up with Drake May, which I don't love. I do think he will fall in the draft, at least fall farther than I think the Patriots should let him go. But re-sign Hunter Henry. That was a big one. Their best tight end. They had no tight ends on the roster, basically. Re-sign Kendrick Bourne. He was a very, very efficient, underrated piece when he was on the Patriots. Sign Mike Onwenu because he was probably their best offensive lineman. So you want to sign him. They signed him to a pretty decent deal. They re-signed Kyle Duggar. He's on the transition tag. My guess is they'll get him on the roster by the start of next year. Sign or trade for a stable running back, too. Now, I wouldn't mind them if they got Ezekiel Elliott back. Instead, they went for Antonio Gibson. I don't hate the move. I would say it's a somewhat stable running back behind Ramondre Stevenson, and then release or trade Juju and or Devontae Parker. They got rid of Devontae Parker. He now signed a 1-year deal with the Philadelphia Eagles today. They still have Juju on the roster, but I think they may end up getting off him if they decide to draft other Xavier Worthy or a couple other wide receivers in the draft coming up, maybe in the 2nd round. I'm not entirely sure. But getting rid of Juju is not a priority. Getting rid of the guy who was ranked dead last in separation for 4 straight years, yeah, that would be a smart move. So good job to Elliott Wolf and Gerard Mayo or whoever else was a factor in those decision makings. But on the Patriots side of everything, I really like the way this offseason is going. The question is, what moves are you going to continually make, because Calvin Ridley right now is deciding between the Jaguars and the Patriots, and I'm waiting for some breaking news on that. There's a couple breaking news things as we go along here. Nothing too major, but still some big signings. But yeah, they haven't signed any big wide receiver yet. Calvin Ridley's out there. T. Higgins requested a trade, so the Patriots, I'm sure, are going to be involved in that. But right now, they're making really, really good moves. It's just a matter of now hitting on draft picks and keep going with spending, because they still have, I think, $71 million in cap space. So they have a lot that they could work with. So the job's not done yet. You're getting rid of some maybe toxic pieces, but you're also bringing in a healthy future for Gerard Mayo's beginning to his era of being the coach of the Patriots.
Well, I agree with all that you've said. I do think you don't go much of anywhere without a really good quarterback. So I guess they'll be drafting one now. Now that Mac Jones has been traded, they brought in Jacoby Brissett. I don't see them. Think he's the answer for them to, have a winning season.
I don't expect him to be the starter, though.
Huh?
I don't expect him to play a single game.
Yeah.
Not
you don't think
one.
he'll play a single game, huh?
If you're drafting a quarterback at 3, you're playing him.
Yeah. So who will it be? I mean, it doesn't look like they'll be able to get Jaden Daniels, so the Commanders want him.
So obviously the last 4 of that, if Caleb Williams goes 1, which the Bears are still deciding whether or not they should draft a quarterback at number 1, it would probably be Caleb Williams, and then what I'm seeing is Jaden Daniels in number 2. Then they have Drake May, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, or J.J. McCarthy. Because of J.J. McCarthy's combine and because of what he's doing in his meeting with teams, he's apparently rising in the draft boards because of his intellectual assessment when they were on the whiteboard, plays, breaking down stuff. That's why he's rising up on the draft board. But Drake May wouldn't fit in this offense, because they don't separate. If they go out and get a separating wide receiver, then we could see Drake May's deep ball. Otherwise, I want a meticulous thrower. J.J. McCarthy may fit that spot. He very well might. But then I could also look at Bo Nix, who I think is closest to being an NFL-ready quarterback because he spent the most time in college. We've seen a couple of these 4-year college guys. Brock Purdy was the latest one, and performed very, very well. I think Bo Nix could come into a system with Gerard Mayo and, put up a 6-11, 7-10 season. Truthfully, if they go out and get Calvin Ridley or T. Higgins, and they go out and get a proper quarterback, and they finish off the only other check mark, which is the difference maker, I would say a 6-11, 7-10 for season 1 on a kind of rebuilt offense.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
I'd be surprised if they do that well.
Well, you're expecting like 3-14 because Belichick's
maybe
not there.
5 wins, something like that. I think they're going to be last in the division.
Well, I think that's a given because the division's just good.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
The other thing I'd say about Mac Jones going to the Jaguars, he is heading home. That's one thing. He and Trevor Lawrence were in the same draft class, right?
Yep.
And Trevor Lawrence went 1, Mac Jones went 15. Doug Peterson tends to get the best out of quarterbacks. Do you think there may be a little message being sent to Trevor Lawrence?
I would say that, Trevor Lawrence, late in the year, they completely fell apart. He was never healthy. They had to put C.J. Beathard in. I would say if you're worried about Trevor Lawrence's injury concerns moving forward, can Mac win you 3 games? I think so.
Maybe.
I think so. And I think with Doug Peterson's coaching, Mac Jones supposedly didn't take to the hard Belichick coaching. So that was one of the major problems and why that fell through. I think Doug Peterson can do a Nick Folesian type move where he doesn't make maybe a bad quarterback, because after Nick Foles left the Eagles, he was horrible. Actually, terrible.
He never played well anywhere but at the Eagles.
Right. So I think Doug Peterson, I don't know if he could completely fix Mac, but can he make him go from a scared guy making legitimately boneheaded decisions, throwing it 2 feet into a linebacker's arms, nearly getting pick 6? Can he fix that? I think so. Getting out of New England, getting out of, no matter where you play, home or away, you're hearing zappy, zappy on every single pass, whether it's a 50-yard deep bomb or if it's a 2-yard out route or going the other way. I think it's a mental clearance for Mac. I think he can get, a little bit more confidence back. And hey, motivation, you got picked 1, I got picked 15. I might be on a new team, but I'm not necessarily done yet.
Yeah.
New scenery, new motivation.
Something to prove.
Mac will be back. I don't know when. I'm pulling a Baker Mayfield card. I don't know when. But you know what? I'm doing a reverse. Mac Jones will be a starter again in the NFL. I'm reversing my Baker take, except I'm putting in a Mac Jones now. He will be a starter in the NFL. I don't know when it'll be. It may be 5 years from now. It might be a Geno Smith type play. Mac will be a starter again because we saw something. It wasn't a Zach Wilson or a Justin Fields where there's just nothing really there that translates well to the NFL. Zach Wilson had a great, great arm. Justin Fields has great athletic ability, but they still end up losing. Mac won 10 games. Mac won the same amount of games in his first season than Justin Fields has in all 3. Zach was just a bad quarterback. We saw something.
So far, he hasn't landed anywhere.
Zach, apparently, we're not going to talk about this today. The Broncos are looking at Zach Wilson. Maybe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Not great. Let's get into our next topic here. So we talked about this actually on the last show. Kirk Cousins has officially signed a 4-year deal with the Atlanta Falcons. This is a pretty big one. He's on the move. We talked about his wife's family's in Atlanta. Will he actually move? He's actually on the move now. The Minnesota Vikings quarterback is headed to the Atlanta Falcons on a 4-year, $180 million contract with $100 million guaranteed.
And $50 million signing bonus.
It's crazy.
Unbelievable. That guy is unbelievable in the kind of contracts he's been able to land.
Yeah.
He had a contract with Minnesota, $84 million, all guaranteed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy stuff.
And he's, he gets a lot of criticism too. I mean, he hasn't taken a team deep into the playoffs in his whole career. Right? He lost to the Giants last year.
He lost to Daniel Jones.
2 years ago.
He lost to Daniel Jones. It's not pretty. I want to know, did Minnesota make a mistake in not pushing harder for Kirk? And also, what are you predicting for the Falcons next season? How will he fare in Atlanta in 2024?
The Vikings, I mean, he liked Minnesota. They liked him a lot. He was big in the community there. He'd been there quite a while. I'm surprised they didn't try to make him a better offer, a bigger offer. But I don't think they were going to go $180 million. So I can understand why they didn't try to counter against Atlanta. And how far do I think Atlanta can go? Well, they're really in one of the weakest divisions. So, I mean, they're not going to have much trouble with Carolina. Probably they shouldn't have too much trouble with the Saints, actually, given that they do have Kirk Cousins as their quarterback now, and they have a lot of pieces on offense, a lot of really good young players there. I think it will be between them and Tampa Bay in that division, really. Tampa Bay, I think, has a little bit of edge there. And if they do win the division and get into the playoffs, I don't think they'll go very far.
Interesting. I like it for Kirk's sake, because what the Falcons are in, you say one of the worst. I'm saying it's the worst division in football. You have the Carolina Panthers, who drafted the first overall quarterback last season with Bryce Young, who was horrible, albeit didn't have a phenomenal wide receiver core, but had a pretty decent defense. Atlanta, who had Taylor Heineke and Desmond Ridder. Now they have Kirk Cousins. They have a pretty good offensive unit. Defense was underrated. The Saints, massively underwhelming, had, I believe, the second easiest schedule in the NFL last season and only went 9-8 with Derek Carr instead of Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston and everybody else. And then you have Tampa Bay, who did bring back Mike Evans, who did bring back Baker Mayfield now, which we'll talk about in a couple minutes from now. But, and then the numbers have moved in Atlanta's favor to win this division, I think rightfully so. Kirk Cousins was actually having a pretty damn good year. 8 games played, he had basically a 70% completion percentage, 2,300 yards, 18 touchdowns, 5 picks. That's pretty good. He also had Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson. Running game could have been better, but they only had Alexander Madison, so you can't really argue that much with having a great running game. But instead, he goes to a team with Bijan Robinson and Drake London and Darnell Mooney, which they signed today. Kyle Pitts as your tight end, not bad at all. And then you also have, I think, one of the best offensive lines graded by Pro Football Focus. Their pass blocking rate was 4th in the league. 4th in the league, and the run blocking grade was 7th. So they have essentially a top 10 offensive line in totality. So Kirk's going to a pretty damn good place. You have a lot of weapons. You're in the worst division in football. I think they definitely will win the division. If we're making our standings predictions for the NFC South right now, it's Atlanta number 1, and then I really think there's a shot Tampa regresses, actually. I think the Saints could take that second spot, and I think Carolina will be bad. Probably, they got off of Brian Burns yesterday. They're probably going to be bad for, my guess is 2-3 more years, even after this one. So
you think Atlanta is better than Tampa Bay?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. I
don't know. They have a brand new coach. We don't know what he's going to be able to do. A brand new quarterback, right?
Well, we're not talking about brand new.
Well, the chemistry.
Right.
We don't know what the chemistry is going to be between the head coach and the quarterback. You look at Derek Carr. We thought he was going to take the Saints to win that division, right? Because he had a pretty good numbers in his career over at the Raiders, and lo and behold, he didn't really do very well. He was much less than they expected, and that may have something to do with the chemistry between him and the OC and the head coach. Who's the OC going to be in Atlanta? Is anybody that Kirk Cousins knows? I wonder.
No.
Yeah.
That's
a brand new start, new system, all that. I don't know. I still think Tampa Bay has the edge.
Let me ask you this: who's better, Kirk Cousins or Taylor Heineke?
Kirk Cousins.
Who's better, Kirk Cousins or Desmond Ridder?
Desmond Ridder.
Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins.
They went 7-10 with those two at quarterback.
Yeah, I know. That's true.
With Desmond Ridder, I might be wrong at this, but he was very, very low. Desmond Ridder, I believe, was the lowest graded quarterback in the NFL last season. Bryce Young was down there as well. Mack was down there too, but Desmond Ridder was one of the lowest graded quarterbacks in the NFL, and they still went 7-10, and were basically in the running to
the last
win the
game.
NFC South.
They got to the last
close to it was about 2 games out from the end. They ended 7-10. The Saints and Tampa both ended 9-8. So if you had a better quarterback, You hand the ball off more to Bijan. You have obviously he's not near Justin Jefferson, but Drake London ain't bad. You get another wide receiver too, Darnell Mooney, not bad. You also have Van Jefferson, but he's not incredible. Then Kyle Pitts. There's a lot of similar situations there. A good wide receiver one compared to a great one, but still a really, really talented tight end. A really good running game, Dalvin Cook, who's on the Vikings previously. So there's a lot there. A great offensive line, underrated defense.
How's that tight end?
Kyle Pitts, incredibly athletic. I think he gets underutilized so far in his career. For where he was drafted to his production level, it's depressing. But then again, they've had a broken Matt Ryan. Then you go on to Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heinicke. Yeah. It's a complete mess in Atlanta.
Do you think the wide receiver core in Atlanta is anything close to what was in Minnesota? I don't.
Drake London to Justin Jefferson, the gap is big. Jordan Addison's still a rookie, but he was a great rookie. Hawkinson, Kyle. I seriously think Kyle Pitts will have a really, really good year this year. He's never, his rookie year was pretty good, 1,000 yards, but only one touchdown.
Oh,
I say that he does much better.
Cousins threw for 23,000 yards and 171 TDs with Minnesota, so that's not bad.
Not bad at all. The question is, when you get into the playoffs, can you win a playoff game?
Mm-hmm. He is 36 years old, too.
Coming off an Achilles.
Yeah.
And you signed to a 4-year, $180 million deal.
Yeah, with $50 million signing bonus. Wow.
Yeah.
That's huge. That guy is amazing.
Putting a lot of faith into an old quarterback.
He's got a lot of money.
Well, I mean, every single contract he's ever signed was fully guaranteed. Yeah. I'm pretty sure this is the only one that everything is not, it's going to be yours by the end of it. So, a little bit interesting there. But Kirk Cousins to Atlanta. I think that's going to be fun. The NFC South, while the teams might not be great, like Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincinnati, it might be a tire fire, but it's going to be a very, very close tire fire. Yeah. It may come down to the last game of the year for one of these teams.
Well,
just because they're all not great. There's no major separator between each of these teams.
Well, at least Kirk Cousins' wife is happy.
There you go. And you're riding off into the sunset with your career.
And you got a $50 million signing bonus.
Perfect transition to the next stage of your life. Let's get into our third topic before we go to break. And let's stay in the NFC South because Baker Mayfield, he's back in Tampa on a 3-year, $100 million contract extension with $50 million of that guaranteed. The contract can max out to $115 million with all those added bonuses and incentives and whatnot. I want to know, was this the right move for the Bucs to re-sign Baker to a long-term deal?
Well, it looks like a long-term deal, but they can get out of it after 1 year, right? He can wind up making $40 million, and they can say goodbye to him. And $40 million is quarterback speak these days for anybody who's any good. Is not a ton of money anymore. So I think the Bucs made a very good deal. And I'm happy for Baker Mayfield. I hope he is able to play out that contract. If he falters though, and they wind up not making the playoffs or wind up third in their division, he could be there just 1 year, making that $40 million and then gone. But I think it's nice that he got a good contract and has the opportunity to make as much as $115 million. He's had 8 coaches and 7 offensive coordinators and 4 different teams in his NFL career so far. The offensive coordinator that he did well under left and now is the Carolina Panthers coach. The guy that's coming in, Liam Cohn, is the Rams' former offensive coordinator that he was with when he was at the Rams for those few games a couple of years ago. So maybe he'll do well with him because he surprised when he was at the Rams and some of the games he got into and played. He surprised people in terms of how well he did. Not knowing the offensive scheme, actually came in like he was there for 3 days, and they went out and won a game for them. So it was pretty impressive.
It was against the Raiders. Their defense was not.
But still,
stellar.
I mean,
it was very, very impressive. Yeah. I'm not going to fully short it.
I mean, he didn't start the game, and when he wasn't in there, they were doing terrible.
Yeah.
When he got in there, he gave them a spark, and they were behind when he came in. They wound up winning.
Yeah. So. Everybody knows if you watch the show and we talked about either the Bucs or Baker Mayfield that I had a really, really bad take. Ended up, feeling the wrath not only from viewers and having to swallow my pride on it, but also from you hearing that, oh yeah, you said Baker Mayfield was never going to be a starter again. Yeah, I'll swallow that. Yeah, I was wrong about that. When it comes to this,
$100 million contract.
$100 million is a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. But I think he deserves it. He played well last season. My only concern about this contract, and that's why it's structured in the way it is, it's not at the same level because he played better, but it's the Daniel Jones syndrome. This is what I'm going to call it now. If a player who's not been great his entire career and then on a major contract year plays great and they pay him a lot of money, we got to be wary about this. Is it just the fact that he's playing for the contract, or is it because he's legitimately a really good quarterback? And we haven't seen it until this point due to either a bad coach, bad system, too many coaches, whatever, just bad organization, whatever the case may be. Or was it the fact that he grew up and became a better quarterback? That's my only major concern with Baker. What version of Baker are we going to get? Because we saw Daniel Jones regress back to his pre-contract self. It was very, very smart for the Bucs to go out and pay Mike Evans the way they did. It was good that they signed Chris Godwin to the extension when Brady was there. They have a couple nice pieces. I like Trey Palmer. I think he might be an interesting slot receiver, young receiver that could, he's not going to become, a Mike Evans or a Devontae Adams or whatever, but I think he could be a nice shifty little piece for the Bucs. There's two major problems. The first one would be, like I said, what version of Baker are we getting? The second one would be having somewhat of a balanced offense. For yet another year, they rank dead last in running the football. Can they develop any sort of a run game? Because if they can't, we may see Baker Mayfield regress slightly, and it might not even be his fault. It might just be he's aging. People are understanding how Baker plays within the system of the Bucs. He's going to be in year 2 with them. Can they run the ball effectively? Because if they can't, there's going to be some major problems. Not only that, you lost your center, Ryan Jensen. He retired. So now you have Robert Hainsey as your starting center. Now, will you draft an offensive lineman? Maybe. You might. But if you can't keep up that offensive line that was pretty good from the time Brady was there up until kind of when Baker was there, the offensive line was not too bad. If you can maintain a good offensive line, give Baker some time, he could be nice in the pocket against average teams to sometimes good teams. But if you can't have that offensive line, that means no great pass protection, so Baker doesn't have time, and then obviously no run game. Even with the decent offensive line, you still can run the ball. You need a difference maker on offense when it comes to running the football because basically your offensive line is good. We'll have to wait and see how Ryan Jensen, how that piece, affects the entire offense. You may draft a shocking great center. Who knows? You have your wide receivers in place. I don't mind Cade Otton being your tight end. Would I like a better one? Obviously for the Bucs' sake, but he's perfectly fine. You have wide receivers. You need a running game. And then what version of Baker are we getting? If all those things hit, offensive line's fine. Wide receivers are who they are. Mike Evans has another 1,000-yard season like he tends to do. And then, you have a somewhat balanced running game. Offensive line holds up. I'd say that you could make an argument Bucs could win 11, 12 games.
Yeah, well, I think they're going to win the division.
Right. So, but I think all those things have to hit because even when Mike Evans had another 1,000-yard season, Chris Godwin played well. Offensive line held up. They had the dead last ranked running attack in the NFL. They barely won the worst division in football with a 9-8 record. Now, albeit Baker Mayfield played slightly better and had a better record than Brady did at the very end of his Bucs run, but still 9-8 in the worst division in football.
Yeah,
with a few of those things hitting.
Yeah.
Offensive
Do you think
line,
he might have gotten
receivers.
more money if he'd held out longer? Maybe with another team? Do you think he might have gotten a bigger contract?
No.
You don't think so?
I don't think because he also made this notion that he wants, he wants to get paid for his performance. I would say, $33.3 million, give or take. I'd say that's a good enough deal for Baker because of his history and, for the way he played. He played perfectly fine.
I think, your analogy to the Daniel Jones contract.
Daniel Jones syndrome.
I would say Baker Mayfield had a good year with the Cleveland Browns and got them to the playoffs. 1 year, so I think he played better prior.
But why did they win that
Daniel
playoff
Jones.
game? Why did they win? Why did they win that playoff game? It was like 48 to 28 or something like that. Their defense suffocated, crippled Big Ben. Big Ben was not good at the end of his his run. No, really, no quarterback who ages
He
plays
still, though,
well.
did get him to the playoffs.
He did.
Right?
He did. I believe,
So-
if I'm not mistaken, they were 11-0 that season, lost their last 5 games. I might be wrong on that, but they lost a number of games at the very, very end.
Yeah.
And then they turned out to be frauds. Now, ironically, Baker did the same thing this season. The Eagles were 11-1, lost the last, some of their games, and beat that team in the first round of the playoffs. So the fact that he got bounced around and didn't play well in Carolina, then he has this one good year with Tampa, I think there needs to be some level of caution, and that's why I think the contract is structured the way
they can
it is.
Get off him after 1 year. They were thinking about that, and I think they got a contract that's fair to both sides, actually.
Yeah.
If Baker Mayfield continues to perform well, he'll make $100 million. If he doesn't, he's gone after his first 40, which is not a bad payday.
Absolutely not. So Baker's back in Tampa. We will obviously have to wait and see, but I think a lot of Bucs fans are very, very happy that Baker is back. All right, coming up, we still got a lot to talk about. Saquon Barkley has become the most hated man in New York, as well as Russell Wilson. We talked about him talking with the Giants. Could he sign? Nope, he's signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Can he beat out Kenny Pickett? We'll talk about that. Sam Darnold and Derrick Henry. 2, I'd say, surprising signings. One, obviously, Sam Darnold. The other, Derrick Henry joining another really good running team. We'll talk about that right after this.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the comment.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of today's show. So this is pretty fascinating. Saquon Barkley has officially become the most hated man in New York because he signed a 3-year, $37.75 million contract with the NFC East rival Philadelphia Eagles. Giants fans are very, very upset with Saquon, but I don't think they should be whatsoever based on stuff that's coming out between what happened with Saquon and the Giants organization. But I want to know, are you surprised that Saquon decided, you know what, let me pack my bags up, go a little bit down the road, and join the rival in my own division, the Philadelphia Eagles? Are you surprised?
I'm not surprised. I thought he was disrespected by the Giants. I don't know what the Giants are thinking about. He was the best player they had on offense for the last couple of years, and he deserved to. They dissed him with the franchise tag, and he gave up on that because he wanted to be in training camp, and he got the 1-year deal with what was it worth, about
it was the same with
$900,000 more, and now he gets a 3-year, almost $38 million contract with the Eagles, and the Giants are going to suffer for it. I think he's going to come back there with their the offensive line the Eagles have. He could be the leading rusher in the NFL next year. He definitely could. Look how good DeAndre Sweat did with them, right? He was not that big a name, and he played well with the Eagles because he got such a good offensive line, number 1 in the NFL. And I think the Giants now, they signed Devin Singletary. Devin Singletary. Come on, that's a step down from Saquon Barkley. It is a little surprising that the Eagles signed him to such a big deal. They don't generally do that with their running backs. They rarely give. Deuce Staley was the last running back that got the contract bigger than this. He got $45 million years ago. So it is surprising the Eagles signed him, but they see him as a multi-threat player. He's a great runner, a decent receiver, and a good blocker. So I think he'll have a career year. I think he'll be right up there in terms of total yards for a player next year, and I'm happy for him. I think he could win. He could get up to $46 million, almost $47 million in this with this contract, and he got $26 million guaranteed. He's going to a team that has a much better offensive line. Look how well he did with the Giants. They had nothing for an offensive line. There was never a hole to run through, and he found a way to get over 1,000 yards there, and added to it with his receiving abilities. So, good for the Eagles, bad for the Giants. He winds up in their division. He's going to be hell-bent when he goes to play against them. He's going to have some big games, and the Giants are going to be hearing about it.
Absolutely. So what I find crazy is that Giants fans, I understand that you might be going to your rival, but including Tiki Barber, former Giants running back, said, "You're dead to us, Saquon. Good luck. You're dead to me." I don't understand why Giants fans are upset with Saquon. What came out about this situation and this situation alone is the Giants never even offered Saquon a contract with them for this offseason. They franchise tagged him last season, wouldn't give him the $12 or $14 million he was asking. And this time around, I expected him to get franchise tagged again, and we'd be in this process of, will Saquon sign it, blah, 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 blah. Turns out, the Giants just didn't even decide to give him any offer. Let him go completely. And decided to follow up the news with, "Hi, Giants Nation. We're going to sign Devin Singletary to replace Saquon Barkley." What? Hello? Gary Brightwell is the backup. So it's not like you had options. It's not like you had the next great guy right behind Saquon to take over his place. You had nobody. So now in an offense, and while, yes, you did sign a couple offensive pieces like Jermaine Illuminor and John Runyon for the offensive line, Andrew Thomas is still there, obviously, and John Michael Schmitz needs to develop. He was a rookie last year. Evan Neal is still on your team, the worst tackle, arguably, in the NFL. You have no running game now. Saquon was your only, bright spot in a rather dark offense. And then you also just don't have any wide receivers. So you still have a bad offensive line, no running game, a horrible quarterback on a completely overpaid contract that you need to stick with for at least one more season, and also a tight end contemplating retirement in Darren Waller. No, but don't worry, Giants fans. We signed Brian Burns. We gave up this year's second round and next year's fifth, I believe, to go out and get Brian Burns to team up with Dexter Lawrence as well as Kayvon Thibodeau. So in my mind, the first thing when I heard that these moves are, okay, they're going to try to go play, 90s and early 2000s football and try to win every game 7-3. The thing is, the Giants aren't built to be a lockdown team, and Daniel Jones is still your quarterback. So the offense may put up 7 points, but I think any offensive line that could slow down the pass rush of Brian Burns or Dexter Lawrence, or even just give whatever quarterback they're playing an extra half second, I think they can still beat the crap out of the Giants. Because when it's all said and done, as you've said countless times with several of my quarterback arguments, the quarterback holds on to the ball every single play. And in the Giants' case, it's Daniel Jones, who has an issue with it's been better, as the years progress, but fumble issues. And now for this season, if we talk about bad quarterback play, Daniel Jones this past season was the epitome of bad quarterback play.
Well, the second he got back to drop back to pass, the whole defense was there waiting for him.
I could argue. No. The numbers back it up. He's horrible at evading sacks. He has, I believe, the number 1 or number 2 pressure to sack percentage in the NFL this season. And he only played 6 games. He's 2 touchdowns to 6 picks. It wasn't good. We talk about this bad offensive line. Who looked better? Undrafted rookie Tommy DeVito? Yeah. What about veteran who can never stay healthy in Tyrod Taylor? Also yes. So we could always talk about one of the worst run blocking offensive lines, one of the worst pass blocking offensive lines, one of the worst, offensive lines just in football. Yet we saw 2 quarterbacks run the offense significantly better than Daniel Jones this season.
Yeah. Playing
essentially the same amount of games for every quarterback.
Yeah. My thinking is the Giants met with Russell Wilson at the airport in Newark I bet they offered him a contract there, and he said no. That would be my thought. He was waiting to see what Pittsburgh would do.
I'm surprised they didn't overpay for him.
And I'm sure he thought, in looking at how the Giants are structured and how they've been the last few years, they got lucky there with the playoff team a year ago. I think he probably said, nah, I don't want to do that. I want to see what Pittsburgh's doing. And he wound up there, and we're going to talk about that next. But, wow, the Giants, I really see them as being in last place this year. I don't see how they think they're going anywhere.
I'm giving a quick shout out to one of my friends when we were talking, throughout, because yesterday it was just breaking news. It was just a constant stream. That first, the first 4 hours that the tampering window was open, we heard breaking news after breaking news, maybe every 3 or 4 minutes. So we were talking about all this news, and let's just say he was very displeased with the fact that Saquon went to the rival, and also just the lack of intelligent moves by the Giants. So I know at least one person who was very displeased, and Brian Burns is a nice little spark because he's just a good player on your team, but the Giants have created themselves a even bigger hole in their offense than they already had. An unnecessary widening of a hole that needs to be fixed, which now we go into, they still need a wide receiver, they still need a quarterback, they still need an offensive line, and they still need a running back.
Yeah, right. I'd say they downgraded at running back. I don't think Devin Singletary can hold a candle to Saquon Barkley.
No,
nowhere near.
You could argue with health, but just production-wise, when he's on the field, Saquon, and he did have a down year this year, but behind, I believe, the first or the second worst run-blocking offensive line in the league, this is a major problem. The offensive line's still bad. Tight ends, you may lose your best tight end who, even if he's still out there next season, can't stay healthy. That was the one major ding on Darren Waller is can't stay on the field. No true wide receiver. Darius Slayton's currently your wide receiver 1. Jalen Hyatt's just a fast slot guy. No true running back. And the guy who holds the ball in every play doesn't do a great job at even holding on to the ball, Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I think it could be a long season for Giants fans.
Well, if you're a fan of defense, you might look at the Giants and say they may have the best defense. You know what? There is a positive. They might have the best defensive front in the NFL.
You think so? I think Kayvon Thibodeau was a big name, but he didn't play so well last year. He didn't really play very well last year. How many sacks did he have? He only had a couple of sacks, I think.
11 and a half sacks.
Oh, yeah? 11 and a half? Yeah.
No, Kayvon Thibodeau did have a good year. And because we think about it, Chase Young's gone from the 49ers.
I think his first 6 games, he didn't have a sack.
Well, it's kind of rough when you're getting the crap beat out of you by the Cowboys and you can't really do anything because, honestly, the defense didn't really play all that much because they would get such short fields. It would be, let's jump on the field. Okay, they score in about 4 plays, and then the offense is back out there. So I'm not going to hate on the first 6 games, but honestly, that makes a better case for Kayvon. If you already lose 6 games and he played all 17, it means 11 and a half sacks in 11 games. It's pretty damn good. Pretty good.
They did upgrade their defense, and they do have a decent defense, so we'll see. But they'll be playing Patriots ball, Bill Belichick ball, trying to win games, as you said, 7-3. Yeah. That ain't going to happen.
Well, with this really good, I'm calling it the best defensive line in the NFL. You could argue Dallas, maybe. You could argue, Philly, but they're, reportedly wanting to trade a couple of their defensive linemen. New York Jets, maybe. I think there's a pretty good argument. The Giants have the best defensive line in the NFL. But then again, once again, you have no offense. So, 7-3. If you like defense, and you like vintage football, watch the New York Giants this season. All right, let's talk about this quarterback who I think I have a slightly new take on this quarterback. So the Pittsburgh Steelers have signed Russell Wilson to a 1-year veteran minimum deal at $1.21 million. Russ was traded from the Seahawks to the Broncos for a massive overhaul, arguably the worst trade in NFL history. And then also, he only lasted 2 seasons in Denver, and now he ends up in the free agent market and signed with Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers. How successful do you think Russell Wilson will be with the Steelers? And overall, do you think this will be a smart signing for Mike Tomlin and the Steelers?
First, I'll say, yes, I do think it's a very smart signing. $1.2 million, that's nothing. in the NFL, particularly for a quarterback who's had success and is a Super Bowl winner, and has had a tough time the last couple. He actually didn't play so bad last year. He had some pretty good stats there, and they did win 7 games. So I think it was a very smart signing by Pittsburgh. It gives Kenny Pickett a lot of heat. He's going to have to really step up, and they'll really find out whether he can do it or not. If he can't, then Russell's going to be their starting quarterback. And Pittsburgh has some talent on offense. They have a decent offensive line. They have 2 really good running backs. They have 2 really good wide receivers. I think that Russell could do well in this offense, and I think he'll get a chance to show it. I do think it's too bad for the free agent quarterback that left Pittsburgh. It was
Mason Rudolph.
Mason Rudolph. I was thinking he was probably hoping he would wind up back there because he had last 3 games of the season. He won all 3 and had some very good stats. So other teams may be looking at him. He won't be a starter, but maybe they'd sign him as a backup. So I like what Pittsburgh did here. I don't think it's a very low risk thing. It will give Kenny Pickett some heat, and that'll be a good quarterback fight to see who gets the starting nod for the beginning of the season. I'm betting Russell Wilson gets it.
Well, I think the task just got a little bit more difficult because we do have breaking news when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we talked about they have 2 really good receivers, -1. Deontay Johnson traded to the Carolina Panthers for Dante Jackson, cornerback Dante Johnson, and a pick swap. This just happened within the past, 3 minutes or so. So now Russ is already down 1 offensive weapon. So I think the task just got a little bit more difficult, which I already thought, and this is why I'm saying I'm not changing my take, but I have a slightly new take on Russell Wilson. This just enhances it even more. Now, as I mentioned before, and as the 2022 season ended for Russ, I said the trend has begun. This won't be a blip. The trend has started, meaning I think Russ is washed. And then we look at the numbers, and I brought this graphic up a number of times, but we look at the numbers, it's like, well, maybe Russ isn't washed. But then you realize he had one of the lowest deep ball percentages in the NFL, below average and average depth of target. He was playing it safe to make him look like he's a better quarterback, like he's a new quarterback under Sean Payton. But now you take a look at the division. And that's why when we argued between, outside of the Steelers and the Raiders, because those were the 2 teams that were, questionable for him to go to, and even the Giants, I said the NFC South with the Falcons is your best shot if he wants to actually, step up to the game and win his 2 Super Bowls in 5 seasons, which I don't think he's going to do even with the Pittsburgh Steelers or with whatever team he decided to go to. Because you're playing in, I would say it's, you can't really argue, but it's arguably the best division in football. Russell Wilson now will have to go up against Baltimore twice, Cleveland and that defense twice, and also, let's just say it, I think Deshaun Watson with Jerry Jeudy and Amari Cooper ain't that bad of an offense. And you also have to go up against Cincinnati and Joe Burrow. And you're here with Pittsburgh, and by the way, and here's the knock on the head of this, we all think that Kenny Pickett and Russell Wilson's obviously the better quarterback. The odds for Super Bowl haven't moved. And yet Russell Wilson, I think we could all say, is a better quarterback than Kenny Pickett. It's a little bit surprising how, even though a lot of people think that Russell Wilson, and including myself, Russell Wilson is the better quarterback, it didn't make a single difference in the amount of success Vegas is betting on for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So for me, that just proves that nobody has faith in him. And you have 2 probably Hall of Fame coaches saying, we don't want you. Pete Carroll tried to do his let Russ cook thing. They didn't like the way Russ was, handling himself and how he was playing. They let him go. They opened the trade market, got an absolute steal for him. And then Sean Payton comes in, and immediately you could tell this is not going to work out. Get rid of your office. Get rid of your posse. This is about team. And then you see him getting blasted by Sean Payton on the sidelines at the very end. 2 Hall of Fame coaches didn't want him.
Well, maybe he learned something from it.
I mean, for a coach that's had me for 10 seasons, just to let me go like that, and then get that haul
and
for
just
me.
let him go. I mean, look at what they got. They got such a huge haul. It made a lot of sense, I thought. I mean, Russell Wilson wasn't the youngest quarterback there. They made the right move. They took a huge haul. They got
now you said if he went out with the Denver
they're
Broncos,
still benefiting from it. They get
Right.
some picks this year.
right? But what I'm saying is that it wouldn't have been worth it if Russ goes deep in the playoffs with the Broncos. If him and Sean Payton did some really great things with the Broncos, you could argue it wasn't worth it because we've already seen Geno Smith's regression this season. Now you look at it and say, well, yeah, it's an absolute steal because Russ has been horrible.
Mm-hmm. But I still think the Pittsburgh Steelers made the right move because they signed him for $1.2 million.
It's a
right?
low risk, high
It's a
reward
low risk,
move.
and
Yes.
they still have $28 million worth of cap space.
Right.
You know, they'll go out and get some more players. So they can strengthen their team in a number of other ways, too. So picking him up for $1.2 million, if it doesn't work out, they can release him. It doesn't make any difference. I don't see that. And they still got the $28 million worth of cap space. So they're not done, I would say.
They can't be done. They just got rid of their starting wide receiver.
Yeah, so they've got the
For
money
a
to go out and
cornerback.
get somebody else.
For a cornerback, too, and a pick swap. But still.
You know what? I think they might have. Maybe they
I
should
can
have
understand.
waited.
Yeah,
I would
I can
say that the
understand the move. I'm gonna
Broncos,
say why. Yeah.
you know, now that Russell's there, maybe Justin Simmons would come to Pittsburgh too.
The fact that the Broncos let him go, they kind of need like. Are the Broncos going to let Sean Payton do a rebuild? Because it literally is looking towards.
That's what
they're
it
thinking
is.
about signing Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
Who the hell is willing to sign Zach Wilson to be your
maybe
starter?
Sean Payton can make something of him.
Not a chance.
Well, he did. Look what he did for Jameis Winston.
Look at what he did to Russ. He blasted him on the sideline.
Yeah, well,
you could tell just by Sean Payton's comments and by his body language and his actions towards Russ, that was never going to work. Now, can you bring in a young, athletic? With Sean Payton, you have to be able to be coached hard. I don't think Russ took to hard coaching very well. I think Mike Tomlin could be better personality. And speaking about personalities, I think this is one of the reasons why that Deontay Johnson's no longer on the team. George Pickens is too young for them to say bye. Deontay Johnson, George Pickens had serious issues with other production, game plan, the fact that their quarterback has the lowest touchdown percentage of 300 quarterbacks to ever throw 500 more passes. I'd be frustrated too. But to have that consistently come out on the sideline and throughout each game, that was a problem. Now I'm not going to say a problem, but now one of the distractions and the disruptors is out of the building. I think it's sort of molding a culture that is more geared towards Mike Tomlin because Deontay Johnson, you couldn't, just with how bad this offense was last season, you can't strip pieces away from already a terrible offense. The Giants just did that, but they didn't do it midseason. Now you have a quarterback who is much better than Kenny Pickett, who may teach Kenny Pickett a thing or two. Supposedly, they're still trying to rebuild Kenny Pickett with Arthur Smith. You bring in Russ, which they said they were going to do, create some competition. I just don't think. Are we saying that all of a sudden the Steelers are going to go 12-5, 13-4, win the AFC North and make a deep playoff run with Russ? No. Because you're in arguably the hardest division in football. You have to play some incredibly difficult teams in your own division, let alone in the rest of the NFL. I believe also they're playing the Broncos this season. It would be, let's just say, for the sake of this conversation, let's say Sean Payton does sign Zach Wilson. And let's say they draft Michael Penix and they feel he needs work. So let's say it's within the first 3 games, the NFL decides to schedule the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Denver Broncos, and Zach Wilson's the starting quarterback. How crazy would it be if Sean Payton wins that game? How crazy would that be?
Yeah, that would be crazy.
I mean, I think Sean Payton, no disrespect, I think he's an idiot for saying, hey, let's bring in Zach Wilson as our potential starter.
You know what? You could probably get him for next to nothing.
Hey, Mac Jones showed promise. He got a 6th-round pick. Zach Wilson sat on the bench most of the time and still looked bad when he was doing it.
Yeah,
and he might get a 7th.
Yeah, a 7th-round pick. Who that's
he might get a 6th.
Not a big deal.
He has more. He may go for a 5th because he has more athletic
I don't think
ability.
so. I bet he's a 6th or a 7th-round pick. To trade for him. And that, you know what? That's a low-risk situation. You could bring him in, see what he does. You can release him if you don't think if he does very well. It looks to me like Stidham will probably wind up being the starting quarterback there. Yeah,
maybe that also
maybe
wouldn't
they'll give him
surprise
a
me.
chance. I'd say the Broncos are in a rebuild because they've got this huge cap hit for Russell Wilson, $85 million bucks.
That's crazy.
Wow, and they gave up all those players.
Yeah.
And I mean, they gave up some good players. They gave up Noah Fant.
Yeah.
He's a good tight end, and they gave up a ton of draft picks.
Yeah.
The Broncos suffer for
not only
years.
that- not
They
only
suffer
that-
for years for this.
Not
for
only
doing
that,
this.
signed to a
bad
5-year
move.
extension without Russ playing a single snap. Signed to a 5-year extension before he even said hike once for the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
He couldn't even say Broncos country, let's ride, and he got a 5-year extension. The GM of the Broncos, that is one of probably your worst decisions you've ever made.
Yeah, he's gonna.
You made a couple bad ones. Russ may be the
they
epitome
they
of
suffer
bad
for it
decisions.
for years.
100%. 1,000%. Let's talk about a surprising quarterback. We just talked about Russ. Now let's talk about a surprising signing that I think is very, very confusing when it comes to drafting quarterbacks because Sam Darnold, former Jets, former Panthers, former 49ers quarterback, Sam Darnold may get another shot at being a starting quarterback in the NFL because the Minnesota Vikings have signed him to a 1-year, $10 million contract with a career, let me ask you now, with a career of record of 21-35. Is Minnesota the next, potential spot for Sam Darnold to revive his NFL career?
I don't think so. I think we've seen enough of Sam Darnold, particularly with the Jets. He did do a little better when he was with Carolina, but he started out there and then they benched him, and then he got hurt and then he came back and they benched him. He played a little better last year. Not last year, the year before with Carolina. He never got a chance in San Francisco. One game he came in after Brock Purdy got hurt and he threw an interception. So I just don't. I've never seen this guy. He's a lot like Zach Wilson in a lot of ways, right? He made poor decisions out there, and has some talent, but makes a lot of poor decisions. I think he should be happy with getting $10 million. I'm surprised he would get that much, actually.
I mean, when he was with the Jets, he was seeing ghosts. He was horrible. He was terrible. He goes to Carolina. It's not terrible. He went 4-7 and 4-2 in his only 2 seasons with Carolina, and the
first season he was terrible.
The first season he was terrible, but that second season he was very close to surpassing Tom Brady and winning the NFC South. It came down to that Tampa Bay Carolina game.
He didn't play well in that game.
Brady threw 400 yards in that game. Mike Evans had like 205 yards or something like that and 3 touchdowns. Brady needed to have the best game in the past 4 seasons against the Panthers in order for them to surpass them and win the NFC South. And yet, even though we've seen Sam Darnold not play extremely well over his career, he's still getting jobs. He's still getting jobs. And not only that, head coaches and offensive coordinators still believe in him. Kyle Shanahan.
I don't know why.
Kyle Shanahan got rid of Trey Lance, signed Sam Darnold, and said, I believe I could revive his career.
Yeah.
You have Brock Purdy as your quarterback.
Now he's gone.
Again. Kevin O'Connell. I like him. Let's sign him to a 1-year, $10 million offer. What I find fascinating is he expected to be the starter? Because currently, they have the 11th pick in the draft, which means that if everything goes to plan, and let's say the Giants don't draft a quarterback because they're sticking with Daniel Jones, and my guess is they're going to have a high pick next year anyway, so they may be looking at Shedeur Sanders or Quinn Ewers or whoever the case may be early in the draft next season. Let's say they draft a Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze or something like that. That means that the top 3 quarterbacks are gone. You're stuck with Penix, McCarthy, or Bo Nix. Obviously, you need to love the quarterback to draft him that high. Your defense still needs work. You had one of the worst defenses in the NFL last season. And I'll give you the actual rank. You went 7-10. Your defense was ranked 16. However, it was 24th in the passing game. And the season before that, you had the 31st ranked defense in the entire NFL. So your defense slightly improved, but you still need a lot of work because you just lost your best pass rusher, Danielle Hunter, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. You lost him. So now you lost your best pass rusher. So you're kind of screwed again for a pass rush. Now you lost Kirk Cousins. Justin Jefferson may be knocking on the door saying, hey, Get me the hell out of here. I got a bum at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
You also need to extend Justin Jefferson because he wants a massive contract.
Yeah. They're going to keep him.
If Sam Darnold starts, I don't think I really doubt the Vikings are going to be any good because I think the Lions will be I think they'll be near the top of the division again. I think the Packers will be right next to them. The Bears, they get quarterback wrong nearly every single time. But will Caleb Williams be the generational quarterback everybody's been talking about? I don't fully believe that.
I don't
But
either.
if I go along with the narrative for just the sake of this conversation, the Vikings may end up as the worst team in the NFC North. They might.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think they probably will draft a quarterback, right? They're at number 11.
Number 11.
Yeah, so they'll be one of those quarterbacks that probably is worth number 11 pick.
I would
I
say
think,
you start Darnold for the first month or to Thanksgiving, and you realize, is the offense doing enough right? Because
Do you
if it's
think
not,
that-
you can get off him in a month.
You know, do you think that Sam Darnold is that much better than Nick Mullen? The guy that guy, you know, he threw a bunch of interceptions, right?
Yeah.
But he had 400 yards passing almost in every game he played. And he came off the bench in the game. They put that other guy in there who couldn't
Josh
do anything.
Dobbs?
No, another guy.
Was it?
I can't think what his name was.
Look, was it? It wasn't Jaron Hall. It might have been Jaron Hall.
That's who it was. Yeah, and he came off the bench and he did give him a spark. So is Sam Darnold that much better than him? And you draft and go ahead and draft a quarterback? I'm surprised they gave him $10 million. I think that is a surprise. One thing I'll say though for the Vikings, they signed Aaron Jones.
Yeah,
for $7 million.
It's better than
Why did
Alexander
the Packers let Aaron Jones go? Look at the game he had in the playoffs. How well he played.
He crushed.
He crushed Dallas.
And then he had a pretty good game against San Francisco as well.
Yeah. Why'd they let him go? I don't understand that at all.
The most surprising thing was the Packers took on a dead cap hit to get off of him.
Why?
It doesn't make
any sense.
Here's the thing. They could have kept a better version of A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones with Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones. Instead, you have nobody as your running back now. Besides Josh Jacobs.
Yeah.
You don't outside of him, you don't have anyone. You could have a better thunder and lightning combo. Because that
was
was
Dillon not with them?
I think Dillon is a free. I might be wrong, but I think Dillon's a free agent. But you're significantly worse. I think that's a good pickup for
Minnesota
because it's better than Alexander Madison.
And he's in the division again. It's sort of like Saquon going to the Eagles.
Yeah,
right. He's going to come back, play 2 games against the Packers. He's going to have some big games there.
He may run wild, but what I find fascinating about this now is, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it on Friday, is this basically gives Justin Fields a 0 in the market game. Nobody is desperate for a quarterback now because there are other, like for instance, the Vikings signed Sam Darnold. Denver is really the only spot, but so far all we've heard is Zach Wilson or Jarrett Stidham now. Las Vegas signed Gardner Minshew. The Patriots are going to draft a quarterback and they already signed Jacoby Brissett as their backup. So even in the backup market game, Justin Fields may have no market.
You know what I'm thinking?
That's what's crazy about it.
I'm thinking maybe the Giants will go after
The Giants signed Drew Lock.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah.
Drew Lock. Oh, who is Seattle going to have for their backup?
It might be
Jameis Winston, maybe.
It might. We'll talk about it on Friday, but Justin Fields' market is basically 0 now, and that's crazy.
Well, what are the Bears going to do then?
Well, so, a number of people said that the Bears aren't going to trade Justin Fields. You're right. Maybe out of
Nobody
the fact that there's
him.
no demand for him. Not that they want to keep him, but there's no demand for him.
Well, we'll see what happens on draft day, right? Maybe, if they may stoop and take a 4th or 5th round pick for him.
Yeah. Interesting situation in Minnesota. But let's get into our last topic of today's show. It's been a great show so far. A lot of free agency news and more as we going along the show, such as Mahomes restructuring his deal. There's a bunch of moves that have been made so far. C.J. Gardner-Johnson went back to Philly after having a quick stop with the Philadelphia Eagles. With the Detroit Lions, pardon me. There's a lot. I can keep going down with some breaking news like that, but for the sake of this show, for the sake of structure, we're going to continue with our next topic, which is The king, Derrick Henry, has signed. It was signed by the Baltimore Ravens on a 2-year, $16 million contract with $9 million of that guaranteed. The Ravens have been a top 3 rushing offense since 2019, with 3 of those years being ranked first in the league in rushing. I want to know, what does this mean for Lamar Jackson and for the Baltimore Ravens?
I think it's all good. Right? Derrick Henry is a quality running back. He's a power runner. I think that gives the Ravens more toughness. I think that him hitting that line every once every series, I think is going to be good for them. I think that their offense, to me, the running game is more of a finesse type of running game, particularly with Lamar, right? And Lamar running it maybe too much now, and have Derrick Henry come in there. I think they got him for a steal. 2 years, $16 million. It's $8 million a year. He guaranteed $9 million. That's not a whole lot, actually. Maybe they think the other teams maybe thought he might be a little over the hill.
Well, he's 30 years old, so
yeah, but still, he is that guy's. I think he's still got that first step, and I think playing behind a great offensive line, he's going to make some noise next year too.
I'll say this. The move makes sense when you think, okay, they've had J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards and Latavius Murray and even
he's gone to the Chargers now.
Yeah. There's a lot. They lost a lot of pieces. J.K. Dobbins can never stay healthy. But my major concern with the signing is we know Derrick Henry gets better the later into the game and the more carries he gets. Because as you keep giving him carries, the dude is built like an absolute tank. So defense is just tired of trying to tackle a guy who's, let's bring him up, 6'3", 247. That's a lot to take down every single time. And the Titans, they didn't have a phenomenal offense for the number of seasons that he was with the Tennessee Titans. So they just kept handing it off. And Will Levis worked a little bit of the play action, tried to open up the passing game a little bit, but he was a carry machine. And now on a team where Lamar Jackson runs the show with running, even though he never had I think he had one true 1,000-yard running back, I believe, in 2019. But outside of that, and even then Lamar led the team in rushing, they've always had sub-1,000-yard rushers. Will that change? Will Lamar now shift even more into the pocket passer role and let Derrick Henry run the run game? Maybe. But I think if this offense is structured the way it has been, and you want to play to everybody's strengths, there's a major conflict between Lamar's ability to run the ball incredibly well, arguably probably better than anyone else in NFL history, and then Derrick Henry's production, the production increase as the game keeps going. I think that's where it could be a major conflict. So you won't get the full production value of either side, whether it be Lamar Jackson and him running the football and being strictly a more pocket passer, and then let Derrick Henry just dominate in the run game, or Derrick Henry won't get the production, meaning the yards and the yards per carry or whatever, and then Lamar Jackson will have to shine again. The one thing I'll say is maybe, just maybe, John Harbaugh and this offensive staff, Todd Monken, may feel more inclined when they, in the second half, when they decide, we're not going to hand it to Gus Edwards or any one of our running backs in a playoff game. Maybe if they have Derrick Henry back there, they'll feel more inclined to do that. Because they, for damn sure, didn't do that against the Chiefs, where they barely ran it all. I think they ran it, 6 total times from their running backs? It was some extremely low, unnecessarily low number.
Well,
maybe with Derrick Henry, that changes.
I hear you, that maybe it has the potential maybe to weaken the best strength of each player, right?
Yeah.
Of Lamar but it gives the defense more to worry about. That's for sure. Any defense playing against the Ravens now has got much more to worry about than they did last year.
Yeah.
I think with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson in that backfield, I think they have to worry. Is Lamar going to run it or is Derrick Henry going to run it? If Derrick Henry gets the ball, look out. He's going to be coming at us and hitting us hard. Yeah. And I do think he'll get enough carries so that in the fourth quarter he could be the go-to guy. And I think that makes the play-action pass work really well for Lamar Jackson. They've improved their passing game a lot. What's his
Odell?
name? Odell going to be back with them?
It's a good question. There's at the current moment, haven't heard really anything about Odell, but even then,
he was on a 1-year deal, right?
For the production for the contract, I think he gave him a $15 million or $18 million contract. The production, he's still on the Ravens, by the way. The production level with what he was getting paid, he was getting paid what, $15 million, something like that. The production was not the same amount that he was given. So I would say Odell
he didn't do much in the playoff game. I mean, he didn't really hear from him until near the end of the game.
Yeah.
Against the
Chiefs?
The Chiefs,
yeah. No, it was in the second half or whatever. He got a couple more catches, but in that first half, he was basically a no factor. So I think this makes the offense a little bit more dangerous. The Ravens did lose Patrick Queen, though. They're incredible linebacker, and they also have to deal with Clowney. Clowney had a great year. Are they going to re-sign him? The defense may get a little bit worse. I think they're going to be decently worse this season, which means it puts more stress on an offense and a passing game, which we saw what the Chiefs did to the Ravens. Shut down Lamar. Made him seem extremely pedestrian, even though for the large part of the season, he was playing like the top MVP candidate in the league. And the Chiefs just shut him down entirely. It also doesn't help when Todd Monken draws up, I think it was 6 running plays in the entire game. Well, when you have, Justice Hill and Gus Edwards versus Derrick Henry, I argue if they were in the same situation, just replace Gus Edwards and Justice Hill with Derrick Henry, he'll run it more than 6 times in the entire game. But, maybe not. Maybe they had a game plan, say we're going to throw the hell out of the ball against the Chiefs. I don't know. Wasn't in the game plan room. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm going to agree with you. This does make, I think, defenses a little bit more scared because they have Lamar's incredible ability and increasing ability to throw the ball accurately and throwing it well. And then you also have Derrick Henry, who can run through people like really nobody else can. Makes it dangerous. It makes it very, very dangerous. But I believe that's all the news that we have now to feature. So thank you all for the support for today's show. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching the clips. Thank you for supporting the Harvey Hour. But for this episode, my name's Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We have been your co-hosts of the Harvey Hour. Catch us Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Hi, Grandpa.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.